he was looking down the barrel of a gun with a bullet with his name written all over it. And it was just a matter of what he did and the next steps that he took to see when that bullet was going to hit. You know, watching him fight cancer really sucked. I watched him go from like a, 250, 275 pound man down to an emaciated, 210 pound dude. Like, I had never seen my dad this small. He went through constant, transfusions. He suffered from something called graft versus host disease because the transfer wasn't perfect. I think he finally looked, mortality in the face, his own mortality. It's sad to think that it had to come to that. We were all devastated. This was a man who, even through everything that happened, I knew, I was gonna miss him for the rest of my life, and I still do. He, in a way, realized that, cancer did save his life. It gave him an opportunity to reevaluate everything he had lost in his life before. Medical debts were piling up. His home he couldn't afford anymore. He wasn't working anymore. He wasn't getting paid. And I think this is what made him realize that working as hard as he did and moving as much as he did didn't give him what he needed or wanted. It didn't give him the security, because just like that, the rug's pulled from under him. He wasn't given, a real chance to keep going with, making money and doing this whole career that he had built up. He developed diabetes. His heart really had a lot of issues. There was more that really started kind of, rearing its ugly head. He just felt guilty that he needed the help for once. It just didn't feel right.
He was sick. He had always been sick to some degree, mentally, but now it was all forefront and focused. I remember watching him go through withdrawals from alcohol, and him openly talking about, I'm like, wow, you're so shaky. Is this the medication? He goes, no, I'm detoxing off of alcohol. I need cause to bring me a shot so I can stop shaking. And I looked at him, I'm like, wouldn't that be bad for you right now?
Bad to me is my dad, Bruce Allen Downey. Those are his initials. That's him.
How much longer does he have to give it a shot? Make every day be better than your last. Be a better person than your last.
I've heard change compared to steering a cruise ship. When we decide we want to make a change, we have to change tack, but then it takes a long time for the boat to catch up with that change in course. And that's where time helps us out, right? We can make a decision, and then time is the support system to help us through intention and habit changes and hard work to make those changes a reality.
He really was trying. He would try to talk about things he never would have had he not gotten cancer. But I honestly think cancer saved my dad's life.
This whole period of his life after this cancer diagnosis, Bruce really started to realize, I think, what mattered to him in his life. He played soccer with me and my younger sister. He, started supporting my older sister a lot more in her adventures in life and in the places that she wanted to go. It was really big, seeing this transformation from a guy who was riddled with issues, self-hatred, come to terms with his own mortality in real time. And watching this, man who really didn't know how to spend time with me and relate to me, start to show me his interests and invite me in. You know, we watched movies together. He kindled my love of like nature. You know, we'd go trout fishing a few times. A lot of other things like that. You know, I was already a kind of an outdoorsy kid, but you know, he brought me to greenhouse centers when I was, you know, 13 because he started planting all these gardens at his house. You know, he themed each one for each of his kids, and he brought us to greenhouses to kind of, you know, pick out the ones that we thought we'd want in there, and he helped us plant them and keep them really nice. And it became so peaceful watching him, you know, learn to love himself and be more in touch with himself. I learned so many valuable lessons in such a short amount of time about valuing the time that you get with the people that matter to you. And I think he realized it too, and yeah, he went through this whole like religious rebirth in his life. When he first, you know, got diagnosed, he started, you know, rekindling his love with, you know, Catholicism. We went to a Irish Catholic church over on Tipperary Hill, and he did a lot of soul searching at this point in his life, you know, trying to figure out the man he wanted to leave his children with the memory of.
We can't find healing oftentimes on our own. And so community helps us to do that. And I think that, you know, connecting with our parish, you know, in some way, shape, or form, just by reaching out is and saying, hey, you know, I might need some help here. Or I'm thinking about, you know, coming back to faith after being away because of these circumstances in my life. My name is Dr. Asmussen, and I'm the Director of Faith Formation here at Immaculate Conception. I've been with Immaculate Conception for just about 25 years. Currently, I'm the Director of Faith Formation for here, as well as the other Catholic parish in the area. Every single person has kind of their thing, right? No matter whether it's substance abuse or some other kind of addiction or issue that they're dealing with. So I think the first and foremost is to remember that's part of the human experience. Every single one of us has something. And so, you know, looking at each individual, not necessarily in the context of whatever that vice is or whatever that addiction or that thing is, but the fact that they are a child of God. And so really being able to minister to them as an individual and help them work through whatever challenge or vice or issue that they may need to be working through. So it's really seeing them first and foremost through the lens that they're a child of God first. If we know that Christ is a person that welcomed a bunch of rebel, so to speak, and people that weren't perfect, that's who Christ calls. There's a saying that, you know, Christ equips those that are called. He doesn't call the equipped. So the fact that we're all called to kind of come to the table as a community of people. The story of the prodigal son in the Bible, where the son squanders his inheritance that he demands from his dad before his dad even dies, and then he squanders it and then comes back, and the father welcomes him back. You know, it's not a story about the prodigal son or the person that comes back and recognizes what they've done wrong, but it's about the forgiving father, and it's recognizing that we find that in the context of faith. You can find that here at our parish.
You know, he had his favorite priest, his favorite sister that he would spend time with, and they would pray together. They would come give him communion, and those people started getting, you know, pushed to the wayside in his church, and it didn't resonate with him anymore. And he's like, why is this community doing this?
We might be helping a little bit, on an emotional level or a mental health level, or maybe even on a physical level to some degree. But it's knowing that, our main part is about the spiritual piece. But certainly with concerned person on a medical issue, so it's really even advocating with the person, you maybe need to get some extra help. This is beyond the scope of what I can do. There's been many times where I've been with people and it's like, okay, this is beyond me. This is more of a familial issue that needs to go further with a therapist, that kind of thing.
There is a recovery form called refuge recovery. It's analogous to AA, but it uses Buddhist principles rather than sort of the Judeo-Christian principles of AA. And I make that plug because I think a lot of people don't know about refuge recovery. And I do know a lot of my clients struggle with the God piece of AA, but refuge recovery can be less charged way to experience the spirituality, which can help people to get sober.
He, tried a few different sects of Buddhism. I think he went to like a Zen Buddhist, temple, a few other little sects that were up in the Syracuse area. And none of them were really hitting, but he kind of liked the ideas. He understood like the pillars and the fundamentals of it, and I saw it resonate with him. And then I remember this whole new chapter in his life where he discovered this Tibetan Buddhist sect that was set up on the other side of Syracuse, and he fell in love with it. He met the yogis, he met the people in the convent. Like, these people were so kind. They weren't struck to the rules. They were more there for the ideals, more there for like the love of it, the companionship and the community that he could receive. He had his own, little shrine that he prayed at and meditated at every morning, and he would sit there with yogis, all these people, and I think it was a way for him to cope with the inevitability that he was gonna pass.